Hi, and welcome to the latest edition of the Sky Careers podcast. My name's Mark Hodgson, and it's my privilege to be your host. This month, I'm very excited to have as our guest a lady called Cherish McNamara. Now, Cherish, apart from having an amazing name, and I don't think I know anyone else by the name of Cherish, so we might talk about that. Cherish has a very interesting career. She's out of the United States of America originally. She is a United States Air Force veteran, and now has found a way post her aviation specific career to become the college manager at the College of Electrical Training in Western Australia. So as you can imagine, we've got plenty to talk about. Cherish, welcome to the Sky Careers podcast.
Thank you, Mark. Happy to be here.
All right, we always start at the beginning. Where did you go to school and what were your favorite subjects?
So I grew up in the US, in Cleveland, Ohio, and in the States, it's very different than in Australia. So most people go to public school. The private sector was really just for those chosen for sports or academics or something. So it was a very different world growing up. But I went to the Brecksville Broadview Heights High School. And as far as my favorite subject goes, don't really have any favorite subjects. I just kind of got through and I don't know. Nothing stood out to me.
Cool. Now, I've already put the plot spoiler into the introduction that you found your way into the United States Air Force. So, how did a young Cherish McNamara at high school, kind of doing lots of things, nothing particularly standing out? Join the dots from there to aviation for us?
Well, I think all through school age, when you start off in elementary school, they, say, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's either draw a picture or then write a story or something about that. And I really had no idea. I mean, I was making stuff up because, well, what I thought was interesting. It wasn't until the summer of, I think, going into my year 10 or 10th grade, we went to the air show. Funny enough, Cleveland has the International Air Show every year, but this was the first year that I went. And I had that aha moment. I watched some of the military airplanes fly overhead, and it just hit me like, that is exactly what I want to do. And from then on, it was, okay, what do I need to do to get there? Do I go to the Navy? Do I go to the Air Force? Do I go commercial? How do I get to do what these people are doing and get to fly airplanes like that? Yeah, at the end of the day, I ended up going through university, or Wright State University, so college. Dayton, Ohio is about 3.5 hours or so from Cleveland, so drivable. And it's also the home of the Wright brothers.
Okay.
Decided to go through. Yeah.
I love that.
So I went to university named after the Wright brothers. I went through the Air Force Reserve Officer Training course. So it was 4 years while I was at university. We would learn all the military background kind of stuff, and then, spend a couple of weeks in the summer going off and doing your kind of boot camp stuff. And then during the last couple of years, I would go through all the testing for pilots because I nominated to be a pilot. And that's where you start doing your physical testing, your medical, your mental, psychological, all the different testing that goes on. And I knew by the time I was a senior at Wright State that I had been chosen, or I was able to go to pilot training once I graduated and got commissioned into the Air Force. That's essentially how I was able to go from not knowing anything about what I wanted to do when I was a little girl to finding my way to the Air Force.
Right. You fast forwarded through quite an important bit. I know you fast forwarded through a lot because we've got 20 minutes to cover quite a few decades. But I've shared on the podcast before. I am a failed Royal Naval pilot out of the UK. So I did 100 hours flying training before.
Yeah, right.
I sadly got chopped, which you would understand. I know, brutal, hey. But therefore as with you, I did some basic. You have to become an officer first in the Royal Navy, and then you specialise as aircrew. And I was just going to pick up on for you. You mentioned your school life, but you had quite an elongated, maybe 2 year, I guess well, I say transition. I'm not sure you do transition into the military. You kind of get rudely deposited, don't you?
Yes.
How did you find the kind of, forget the flying stuff for a second? How did you find the military aspect of training? Yeah, because and it's important. It is important to stay. People
Mm,
kind of maybe forget because you go to an air show, you see these glamorous and really impressive big helicopters and transports and fighter jets and fast jets and things flying around, but they are weapons of war, and then
mm.
your job is ultimately to potentially to fight them. How did you find that piece?
Really good question because I don't come from a military background, or like family in the sense of, I mean, my grandpa was in World War II and my uncle, I think, was drafted, but other than that, no military experience, which is part of the reason why when I was looking at all my options, I decided to go through the ROTC route because I figured if I didn't like the military aspect of it, I could still walk away with a university degree. I wasn't sure if going to like one of the academies, whether it was the Air Force Academy or the Naval Academy, was going to be for me, and I knew it was going to be full on. So I kind of did the baby step version of going into the military. Um, but I think for myself, because I've always been a bit of a tomboy and I've had more boy friends than girl friends, and I've played sports, and I was just it was fine for me. Like I didn't have any rude awakenings or shocks, but it was definitely yeah, I learned a lot compared to the kids that were like military brats, moved around, had a bit of knowledge of what it was actually like.
That's great. And so then you thank you. That I think it's a really interesting piece to pick. So then obviously you passed your aptitudes. They worked out you had the potential to be a pilot. And then talk us through your pilot training. What was the pipeline from yeah, we think you've got, what did I say, the right stuff, pun intended, and then through to obviously getting your wings and qualifying.
Well, it's actually interesting because when I first told my dad as well that, hey, I want to go be a pilot in the Air Force, he thought it was a phase. And, of course, at that time,
As only
you
dad
know,
can. You'll get
yeah,
over it.
it's well, what is my daughter doing? She wants to go off into the military and fly airplanes and stuff. And it's like, at that time, Top Gun was still fairly new. And so the original, back in the
Yep,
day.
yep,
And
yep.
so, of course, it was, oh, this is just a phase. It's just a phase. And I don't think it really hit him until I was actually graduating from pilot training, that it wasn't just a phase. So it's interesting to see what other perceptions are of what you do and what you choose to do. But at the same time, like going through pilot training um, it was the hardest and best year of my life, all rolled up into one. For someone like me who had no hours, I hadn't flown at all, so I had, zero experience, shall we say, in actually flying the airplane. I took, private pilot license ground school, and I did one or two flights, but nothing to say that I really knew what was going on. Um, and to say I was probably a bit naive as to what an actual career as a pilot looked like is putting it mildly. Um, but then going through pilot training it was hard on so many different levels. The theory was hard. I was never very good naturally at math and science, which obviously, your aerodynamics and everything
Yeah. Fuel
is
calculations, all that stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Navigation.
yeah, especially the mental maths. Like when you're flying, you need to be able to do the mental maths in your head, which to me it took a little while, and it just took practice and a long time of just going through it over and over in my head. And that dedication, I guess, to try to learn and understand is what was really hard, because that's what was driving me, but it was also something that didn't come naturally to me. So
Yeah.
um, that first year, the first 6 months, we did ground school as well as learn to fly on the T-37, which is a little trainer two-seater airplane. two jet engines. So yeah, first time I really started to go flying, and my first solo was in a dual jet engine
Two
airplane.
jet engines, really? You trained on two
Yeah,
jet engines? Wow.
yeah, it was
Wow.
cool. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Non-standard. Most people don't go that route. But
No.
then, yeah, so then after that, you graduate from, the first part of pilot training, and then you go down different tracks. And so once you graduate, you either go down like the helicopter track, you go down the fighter track, or you go down like the transport or heavy track. So I chose the transport heavy track. Well, I say I chose. It was a little bit of you put your wish list in, and it depends on how many spots they have, and
Yeah.
then it all gets divvied up. So I don't know if I really got to choose per se. And then for the next 6 months, I learned how to fly the T1, which is, I'm going to say like it's a Learjet. It's like a baby, like Barbie jet. Really
Barbie
smooth,
jet.
very
Barbie jet.
nice, all glass um, cockpit. So just, bathroom on board. It was very nice. And then at the end of that, yeah, you graduate, and then it's off you go to your assigned aircraft and your assigned location and all of that. So that 12 months was the hardest, most full on 12 months, but so much fun. Like nothing would ever compare to that.
That's very rapid. I think that's much faster than the equivalent pipelines. I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think. It's certainly. I know the Royal Navy one I did was like a 4-year pipeline,
Mm,
maybe 3 years through to helicopters and 4 years through to the Sea Harriers, which obviously is the very pointy end of of fast jets. But 1 year, wow, impressive.
yeah.
And so what? Where did what? So for those of you who don't know, unfortunately, there aren't that many roles flying around a small business jet in the military. There are some, but that's probably not where you end up. Where did you end up? What operational aircraft did you find
Yeah, so
yourself
my first
on feed up?
operational aircraft, I was able to fly the C9, which is like the military version of a DC-9. So, we've got two engines at the back of the airplane, and
Yeah,
I was stationed out of Japan. So I did all air flying. So that aircraft was specifically designed for air evac. We actually had um, like a big hydraulic door on the side, so it was like a caterpillar that came out, so you could use it as a ramp if we needed for patients, and flew all around the Pacific. We were always on standby, and it was just a beautiful jet to fly. So overpowered, and yeah, it didn't have a long range. Like we still had to stop and refuel, but beautiful airplane to fly.
sounds terrible. What was a memorable? What was there a particularly memorable mission or trip you can remember from flying the C9?
Yeah, there's probably two that really stand out. One was we were on a trainer, so a couple of us pilots and a trainer pilot or instructor pilot. When we were out flying around, we actually were able to stop at Iwo Jima, and we were able to stop, refuel, climb Mount Suribachi, have a walk around Iwo Jima, and I think it just brings home the the challenge that one island is. The humidity and the heat and just it hits you. And for various reasons, just history in general, but it's one thing to read about history in a book, and it's another to actually be there, see, smell, feel.
Yeah.
So that one, and it's not a place that you can really just say, I want to go on a tour of and hit. There's not a lot of cruise ships that poured into Iwo
No.
Jima. So, yeah, I feel really lucky. And yeah, I learned a lot just by being able to stop there. And the other one that stands out is I was flying the night after 9/11. So 9/11 hit, and we were on standby. But at the end of the day, we had a patient that needed to be moved to Hawaii. So we stood by all day because we weren't sure what was happening. All the aircraft were grounded. And yeah, come about 10 o'clock at night in Japan. it was, no, we have to go, we have to move this patient. And so it was a very long night flying over the Pacific. There was no other aircraft out there. It's normally pretty quiet anyway, but I can only liken it to, if you're driving down a freeway at night and there's not another single car anywhere that you can see, and it's just odd. It's a very uneasy feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
So we were
You're like the only little aeroplane in the world, right?
we were one of the very few that were actually flying. But it also goes to show that, human life really is that important to risk a lot to make sure that you can get them where they need to go. But yeah, I still get chills thinking about it because it's just
I bet you do. Because you those two incidents, you're kind of touching history. And 9/11 was. I know we've got a lot of younger listeners, and really encourage you to do two things. Those listen to the podcast, Iwo Jima, very famous island, part of the Battle of the Pacific in the Second World War. Really work, get genning up on that. Google that, find out more about that, and also 9/11. You probably know something about, but at the time when the twin jets flew into the Twin Towers in New York and the
yeah,
Pentagon as well, and no one knew what was going on, and all the aircraft were grounded certainly across the United States and Europe, and it was. It was potentially no one knew, did they? It's easy to look back in hindsight, but at that point, it was very, very scary and seismic. Very historic. I think it's one of those things everyone remembers where they were. I know I do.
yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Fantastic experiences. So bring us forward, because I want to move past your military thing, because I know it's only half the story. So where did you end up? Because you know where I'm trying to take you.
Yep, yep. So essentially, look, I'll speed past some of that stuff. After Japan, I then went to go fly the C-130 out of Pope Air Force Base in North Carolina. And of course, that is shortly after 9/11. So that's when all the Gulf War kicked off in the Middle East, again, the second one. So I spent about many deployments over in the Middle East, and got about 500 combat hours, so in and out of Iraq and Afghanistan. And then, let's see, after that, I stayed with the C-130, but I went over to the UK, and I was a US exchange officer pilot, and flew with the Brits. So I was stationed at RAF Lynham and got to fly the C-130K, which is similar but different because they have a nice air refueling probe on the front. Um, yeah, and then got to fly all around Europe and Africa and a few other places. So yeah, and from there it was time for me to leave. So I made the decision to leave after 10 years total, and yeah, I don't know, it just feels like a lifetime ago.
Well, I know, but just a couple of little side conversations, and you and I had a little chat before. So the C-130 is also known as the Hercules, and I've got a bit of familiarity with, because my brother Carl Hodgson, who we also interviewed on the Sky Careers podcast, he's British like myself, he's English, and he was a Hercules pilot, also coming out of RAF line, I think a bit before you, so you won't have crossed paths. But it's lovely how everything's connected. And then coming
It's a
back to
small
you,
world.
Cherish, it's a small big world, isn't it? And then coming back to you, I mean, 10 years, wow, what an adventure!
Yeah.
Yeah, what an adventure! You packed the far east, Japan, war zones in Middle East, Europe, UK, all in 10 years, you learn how to fly, learn multiple things, served your country. Wow. Hell of a 10 years.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the interesting thing too, going back to when I was in university, one of the things we had to do in ROTC was write a story of where do we see ourselves in 20 years. And I put down there at one point, I'm going to be like a colonel and I'm going to have wartime and all that stuff. And at the time, it was all quiet. And they normally say, wars come in about 20 years. And
Mm.
the commander at the time was like, you're never going to see wartime, and that kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Well, that's fine. I just want to fly airplanes. That's all I want to do is just fly airplanes, and I will be happy. And then shortly thereafter, here I am. It's going off to war.
Yeah. And so, how old were you at the end of your stint with the Hercules? So at the end of your USAF career?
Oh, that's a good question. Now you're going to make me do mental math
Ish,
again.
ish,
In my,
ish,
in my
ish.
head. I was in my early 30s, so I was
Right.
32, I think.
So let's join some more dots. And I know we're moving fast here.
It's okay.
So you're in your early 30s. Did you go back to the States after the UK, or did you left the Air Force from the UK? So you left there. How did a girl get from there to end up in Western Australia,
Yeah,
which
I
is
don't
quite a
know.
long way away?
I don't know. If you can help me answer that, that would be really good. Now, I when I was on one of my deployments in the Middle East, one of my deployments was a non-flying deployment, and I was stationed in what we called the Combined Air Operations Center, or the CAOC. And there we worked with all the allies, and one of the Aussies that was there, I happened to meet, and we just got along really well. And then we tried long distance for a while.
Long
And then as
distance, I'm thinking.
Yeah, it was very long distance. And then as the universe does, and it works in some weird way. When I was in the UK as an exchange pilot, he ended up coming over as the Australian exchange pilot to the C-130J. So he was there. We were both stationed at the same place at the same time, not by pulling strings or anything else other than that is just how it works. So I think the universe was saying, look, if you wouldn't have met before, we're going to make you meet now. Um,
That's
and so
funny.
when I left the Air Force, I stayed in the UK as his partner. Went through all different visas to stay in the UK. And then when he was stationed back to Australia, I went with him. And we had just gotten married and all that stuff. So he's from Perth and wanted to raise a family and stuff as he did. And I have no problem with Perth. I really like it. It's actually much calmer and warmer than Cleveland. So, like, sure. And that is how I ended up in Perth.
Fanny, you've joined the dots beautifully there for us. And so bring us up to speed. So you obviously having done a significant aviation or stint in the aviation career. How did you move on from there to your current role?
So I will speed through kind of very quickly. When we got to Sydney, I was trying to find work. Here I am, this, early 30s. I've got a college degree. I've got lots of experience. But I was only a temporary resident. And so trying to find work was really challenging because nobody really wanted to bring on a temporary resident. So I ended up managing to find some work at the base as a C-130/C-17 training development designer, kind of writing manuals and stuff like that. And because I left the Air Force as an instructor, I could really see the value in the training and the teaching and how all of that kind of plays for different people. And so for quite a few years, I did the training development and the design, went through a few different companies doing that and did that kind of part-time, had my son during that time. We moved over to Perth from Sydney, continued doing that for a little while. And then as my kids were starting to get a little bit older, I went off to TAFE and I taught pilot studies to the vet schools.
Oh,
So I
wow.
did that.
Okay.
Yeah, I did that part-time. Learned a
What's
lot
pilot
about.
study?
So pilot studies is the vet in schools. I think it's a Cert 2 from memory, and that's it's a basic course in learning to be a pilot. So a little bit of everything from aerodynamics to navigation, fuel loading, aircraft stuff. So it's kind of like ground school, but it's a very
Yeah.
introductory version to what ground school is. Um,
Isn't it funny? Sorry to jump in. Isn't it funny how you describe how ground school, and I remember doing ground. I was actually very good at ground school. I was better at ground school than air school. Isn't it funny how you mentioned that the ground school was like a really challenging for you? then, you know, what, 15 something years later, you end up teaching it halfway across the world. It's funny how the world, the things work, things change, isn't it?
Look, and to bring more dots into line, the one system that was my arch nemesis the entire time I was flying was the electrical system, because you can't see it, you can't, you can't touch it. It's just it's there and it does stuff. And yet I end
Yeah.
up
It
working
doesn't give you
at
many clues, does it?
no, it doesn't. And it's not like you can see it dripping or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yet I end up at the College of Electrical Training. So I don't know how yeah, it is very funny how the world and the universe can I don't know, they make it come back to the things that challenge you most.
God has a sense of humor, hey?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So how did you end up the College of Electoral Training? Was that from the pilot studies? Was that where you taught the pilot studies from, or was that
Yeah, it was
evolution?
yeah, so it's again, I'll connect the dots for you. So I did the pilot studies, and then from there I got picked up to actually develop and then deliver the REPL course, the CASA drone REPL course. So that was still fairly new at the time. Um, and I thought, look, this is kind of cool and different. And although in my heart of hearts, I think a drone pilot is not a true pilot, be in the sense of, you're still standing on the ground and all you do is have this controller in your hand. However, I also realize that that is the way the world is going. And so it is a pilot, it is an aircraft. So, yeah, learned how to fly drones, then taught that course for a while. And it's from there that I thought, well, look, my kids are old enough, I can probably look at full-time work. And was picked up to go do a role at Western Power, which is our big electrical government company here,
Yeah.
and they have
Yeah.
a training center. So I applied and was then, I guess you'd say, the college manager for their electrical training center full time. And then from there, I left and just kind of moved over to the College of Electrical Training, essentially doing the same role, just a different company.
Wow, what a story. Do you do any do you still fly at all?
No, no, it's
Is
on
that
the list. It's
is
the
that an itch? Is that an itch you want to scratch?
it's it is in the sense that I know that there's a lot of work that's going to have to go into me being able to get my license and be flying again on my own. Um, I think my kids are just about at the point where they're going to be self-sufficient enough that I can go and spend a bit of the time and the effort and the money and all that stuff on me to get that done. Because I just don't want to go at it kind of half-assed jokingly or finding time and stuff. I really want to be able to go and do it because I do enjoy and love it. I've got some friends that are pilots, so I still get to go up and I still get to, make radio calls and do a bit of flying here and there. But yeah, it's on the cards. So at some point, yeah, I'll go back to flying again.
Good for you. So I'm gonna land the plane, as we say. We could talk for hours, and I'm gonna gonna invite you to do a longer podcast where we go a little bit deeper in some of the leadership aspects, because it's such a fascinating story. But as we've done this whistle stop tour through through your life in
Are
28
you
minutes and
hanging on by the
57
tail of the
seconds.
plane? Are you just like, oh my God, it's just gone? And
Yeah, well, no,
yeah.
but I guess the point I want to make, if we zero this in, and I know you're very active and passionate about helping encourage new people into the aviation industry, specifically women, and probably specifically as pilots, but also other things. I know you've got a passion for that, and
hmm
really, I can't imagine anyone who's hearing your story um, can't be excited about the possibilities. It's interesting. I like literally a week ago tomorrow, I was presenting at Scone. They had a Warbirds over Scone, small air show with all the the Spitfires and the Mustangs. I got okay the Mustangs. The Spitfires are obviously better,
I've
but
got to say, I love
and
the Spitfire. Yeah, it's
yeah,
pretty
and,
awesome.
and I was very sad. I did it on the Friday, and we did the careers day on the Friday, and unfortunately I wasn't able to stay for the Saturday and Sunday, so I didn't hear one Merlin engine, which I was very sad
Ah,
about. It's like it's the very core of being British when I grew up, and Biggin Hill and the Battle of Britain, all those things. But anyway,
yeah,
I spoke to this bright-eyed this room. There are about 60 young students, male and female, probably aged from about you know 13, 14 through to 16, 17. And we presented all these various pathways and possibilities from aviation, with piloting or drone or engineering
yep,
or chefing or a hundred different
yeah,
things. And I
yeah,
just and I always I know my ambition doing that, and also the other Sky Careers team members. You just love to think that someone in your little somewhere you touch someone, maybe just look, you put that little spark of interest or possibility in someone's mind, and then that starts the train, and a train like you, exactly what you've been. You started school, weren't from a service family, ended up going to an air show, seeing some pretty impressive things, flying. Oh, I want to do that. How do I do that? And then the next thing, the next thing, the next thing takes you through the military, gives you an amazing decade, both experiencing amazing things, but also defending your country and doing important work that has to be done and risking your life. Then you find a partner, then you go across the world, then you're doing other things in Australia, and I think it's just such an inspiring story that hopefully other people can potentially see themselves see themselves in, especially when, as you say, it's not like you're a I wanted to fly since I was 6, and it's
yeah,
which is kind of it's a great pathway if that's who you are. But for most people who I interview on the Sky Careers podcast, that's not the reality. Most people don't really know what they want to do. They were
yeah,
not necessarily that academic, didn't study all the inverted commas right subjects. So it's so inspirational to hear your story where you kind of say, well, I wasn't really sure, but I did this, and then that happened, and then I did this,
yeah,
and that was hard, but I did it anyway, and I stuck it out, and I met some cool people, and then before you knew it, my dad was impressed because I was a real pilot, and he's going, what happened? I thought
exactly.
that was just
It
a
wasn't just a
phase.
phase.
So all that being said, there is a question here somewhere,
Sure.
and it's this: what advice would you give to young people who are interested about coming into the aviation industry? What would be your advice?
I think I think the it's hard to kind of narrow it down just to one bit of advice, right? I think, as you said, I've had a very varied career since I started, and um, when you're going through school, and even when you get to be an adult, it's okay to not necessarily know exactly what it is you want to do. If you do know what you want to do, then go for it, and don't be afraid to go for it. But still, always be open to, I guess, these, or doing something different and bringing what you've already learned and your experiences to it. Look, when I first left the Air Force, there's no way that, if somebody would have said, well, in another 10 years, you're going to be, a college manager at an electrical, training facility, I would have been like, yeah, right. Okay. But the other part of that too is, uh, it's okay to try something, and it's okay to fail at stuff. And
Yeah,
failure isn't necessarily failure. You learn from it. It makes you stronger. It also really reinforces what you're passionate about, because if you want to succeed at something, you will get through those failures and you'll grow from it. We all get knocked down. We all fail. I mean, most pilots, when I talk to them, it's not if you fail a check ride, it's when you fail a check ride. It happens, and it's okay. You learn from it and you grow. And yeah, don't get so far down and knocked down that you don't want to bring yourself back up. There's people out there to talk to as well, and those that will support you and be your cheerleaders, and find those people, and do what you want to do. Don't let your, preconceived notions of what you should or shouldn't do keep you from doing something that you really, really want to do. So I just wish everyone could have like an aha moment, because it is absolutely like getting struck with lightning. I can't explain it other than, yeah, it was aha. And yet I think if I knew from a very early age that I wanted to fly airplanes, I still would have gotten there, but it wouldn't probably have like been that, yeah, just lightning rod of go do this now and find out how to do it and look for multiple options and solutions. So yeah, I know it's kind of big and broad and varied to answer your
No,
question.
no, no, no. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I couldn't top it. Yeah, you back yourself. You know, and the failure thing is, I think people are very scared to fail. I love the idea of failing forwards, falling forwards. Have a
Yeah,
crack. You'll as you say, you'll either break through, you'll learn something, but you'll yeah. I always say momentum precedes clarity. You've got to start moving, and then stuff. You might find the things right for you, you might find things wrong for you, but you'll never find out anything sat on your bum and
exactly.
just hoping the world will come to you, because it's not going to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant. Hey, Cherish, I've got to. I say we could talk for hours. I got to wrap up, and we will definitely have you back on the podcast. But thank you so much for your time. Been a fascinating story. I've enjoyed it immensely. I'm sure our listeners will enjoy it a lot. I'm going to ask you to send through some cool pictures of all the catalogue of aircraft that you've sent through, and some pictures of a young Cherish, and maybe Cherish down route somewhere, or all fatigued up in some interesting places, so that we can share that on the Facebook for the Facebook page as well. But for
Yeah,
now,
we'll do.
thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed it, and we'll speak to you again soon. Thank you, Cherish.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Mark.
Thanks for listening to the Sky Careers podcast. If today's conversation has sparked your interest in aviation, then head over to our website at skycareers.com.au. Whether you dream of flying aircraft or you're curious about the hundreds of other exciting roles that keep the aviation industry moving, Sky Careers is your gateway to discovering these opportunities. And if you are already in the industry, check out Sky Careers Connect and Sky Careers Leadership, and consider joining our online learning community. Until next time, keep reaching for the skies.